So let me ask you this, right? I think a big problem is like a lot of people get desensitized to stuff, right? For example, you didn't see him, but usually there's a post office next door where I work at, and there's a guy, gentleman down there, right? And I know this is true, but 3 or 4 people told me that he's been there like for 12 years, right? And like they even said like maybe 3 or 4 years ago, his granddaughter came and got him. He didn't want to go. The police made him go to the granddaughter. The granddaughter took him away. He was back in 3 months, right? So like, what can you even do in those cases, right? I mean, you want to help him safety, but still, like, he's made decisions to live there, right?
So you're getting right to the belly of the beast, which I like to talk about what the mundane act of picking up the trash 5 years ago, needles, drug paraphernalia. Grimly, we've found 12 bodies in the work, in tents and RVs, cars, bones in shanty tent structures in the greenbelts. Learned a lot about homelessness and why people are there, or why they're, in the case of your example, service resistant. These kind of repeat offenders, whether it's criminal driven or repeat people who don't stay in behavioral health centers, and just don't want help. They are sort of chronically homeless is the term. Because of Western State Hospital being decertified many years ago, there is a lot more people that sort of are out in the streets. I know many people that were kind of
Is
from
Western
that.
State the only hospital like that in the state of Washington?
There's Eastern State,
Okay.
Washington State. They need to be recertified. I've never stepped foot into any of them.
But you hear the horror stories, right? When I got into 2009, I heard all horror stories about Western State.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's goes back to the sane asylums and what happened during the 80s, and was that why we have so many people on our streets. And there's my mantra is, if I didn't see it for my own eyes, I have a really hard time believing it happened. That's why I'm very proud that I have my opinions, because of my own boots on the ground, 45,000 hours of volunteer work, empirical data, learning by doing. My education comes from the dirt under my fingernails and the boots that I've broken in. That, what is the root cause of the homeless population, whether it's broken relationships, mental illness, drug addiction, or all three, all of the above, right? There's this element of affordable housing and the element of an expensive place to live. But in the case of the person you're speaking of, I mean, there's just a population of people that will be service resistant. And under a law passed by a very progressive legislator by the name of Lauren Davis in 2018, Ricky's law and Joel's law, my little brother's been hospitalized 5 times for his psychotic breaks, who is housed. So there are means to take somebody against their will and hospitalize them because they're a grave danger to themselves or others. As a society, we've become very loose on what it means to be a grave danger to yourself. I've very recently started taking a position. Of course, I've always said publicly, if you're on fentanyl, you're a grave danger to yourself. If you're on fentanyl and refusing service, you're like super a grave danger to yourself. Then you add you're a senior citizen or you're a veteran with PTSD. What is a grave danger to yourself and others? I'm at the point where if you're not accepting shelter, a very basic need, you're a grave danger to yourself. You'll get frostbite. You could get mugged. You could get raped. You could get all the things that happen when you're outdoors. So I think that involuntary commitment is a missing piece of the puzzle. And I know it's not very popular, certainly in this county.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. Right? I mean, it has to be somewhere like, I know some people will say, well, you can't take them off the street because that's taking their freedom away and the whatever. But like, are they really free? I mean, there are the elements. There are, like you say, possible muggings and stuff. I just know this. I think it's a fine line, right?
For sure. And the civil liberties of one doesn't and shouldn't take the civil liberties away of the rest of the population who feel, and it's unfair to say, back in the day we called him, Freddie the freeloader or the hobo with his bag, that I'm just that guy that's pushing the shopping cart through town. That's not what we're talking about anymore. Fentanyl really changed the game. And, again, I just, as a social worker on the ground, I see the suffering of people who've been out there years now. I know them by name. I can see the deterioration of couples, which we can talk about. Like codependency is a major barrier for people to accept services. They don't want to split up from their use partner, a pet, a community, that all work in community. One person scores the dope, the other one steals for the dope, the other one's there for you to use the dope to make sure you don't die, the other one's carrying the Narcan, the other one's staying at the camp to make sure you don't get mugged. And so that's why you kind of see these camps move around in groups. But yeah, by and large, we're underutilizing. Again, it was passed by a far left progressive legislator by the name of Lauren Davis because she lost her friend Ricky to an overdose. And that prompted her to create legislation that allowed everyday citizens, you and I, if we had a regular person out here on First and Main that seemed to be a grave danger to themselves or others, we could call the designated crisis line and report